One of the main difficulties when confronting this topic is of terminological nature. First, a generalized agreement on definitions is missing. What does European integration mean? You could get as many different responses to this question as people willing to answer it. The most frequent confusion made by scholars is to take European integration and the European Union as almost interchangeable terms. In the previous activity, I tried to explain that integration involves necessarily a genuine transfer of sovereignty over a specific policy area. But the European Union does many things which do not involve such a transfer of sovereignty. If the European Union was a child, the transfer of sovereignty would have provided the DNA and the birth certificate. But once the political creature has grown up, its range of activities would expand into non-integration fields. The problem with this basic confusion is that it leads to the impossible distinction between what the European Union is and what the European Union does. What is fundamental and what is not. A second problem in European integration studies is that many concepts do not mean what they should. There is a permanent unintended terminological confusion. The term European Community was first used to define very specific arrangements concerning the coal and steel industries in only 6 countries. The term common market was generally used when the 6 had agreed upon a customs union, plus a common agricultural policy. A true common market among the member states of the European Union was not reached until the implementation of the Single European Act from 1992 onwards. When the 12 agreed to implement a single market, the community was transformed into a union. The Treaty of Maastricht refers to an economic and monetary union. But we know now, after 5 years of crisis in the Eurozone, that no economic union followed from the implementation of the single currency. The term common policy is applied to the intergovernmental arrangements that the member states of the European Communities, European Union, had reached in the fields of foreign affairs, security, environmental and social policy. The common agricultural policy is a common policy because member states no longer have any degree of national sovereignty in defining the fundamental aspects involved in agricultural production in the respective territories. But the common security and foreign policy is a limited intergovernmental arrangement in which each member state retains almost complete autonomy in its foreign relations and security provisions. When the set of European Union rules, agreements, legal texts and treaties were fused into a unique text, the result was labeled as Constitution for Europe. Not for the member states of the European Union, but for the entire continent of Europe, including Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and many former republics of the Soviet Union. The terminology concerning the European integration phenomenon is certainly misleading. The fact is, in my view, that such terminology reflects the degree of ambition of the architects of integration in Europe. The language that we use in this field does not describe the reality as it is, but the reality as some would like it to be. When the 6 initial member states built a cartel in the core of Europe, they invented a more attractive term, that is, European Community. which could capture the collective imagination of the peoples involved. The term European Community also served to persuade the Americans that the sort of regulatory scheme that the European Colonization Committee recreated was a first step towards the United States of Europe. The United States of Europe had been a main goal of the New Dealers, who at the time occupied top positions in the US administration's policy towards Europe. The customs union of the European Economic Community was immediately presented as a common market, a step much further than what the European Economic Community was in reality. The common market was what the European Economic Community should have ended up being, that is, a customs union plus a set of common policies regarding the competition and the regulation of main economic fields. When the single market was activated in the 1990s, the European Union concept was forged as implying that intimate arrangements in the economic and monetary fields should lead to establishment of genuine political bonds among member states. As of today, though, the deep north, south, east, west divide shows them, the member states of the European Union, more divided than they were in the 1990s. The intensive use of the economic and monetary union concept served to hide from the population the fact that the single currency missed the necessary tools in the non-monetary side of the fence. The current crisis is the result of this negligence. The terminological ambition that characterizes European integration has a twofold purpose. On the one hand, it serves to exercise pressure to move towards further degree of integration. On the other side, it serves to build some sort of supranational patriotism. In the case of Europe, any supranational patriotism cannot be built on the basis of references to any shared heroic past, but only on the willingness to share a better future in common. There are no relevant historical passages that could be shared by the populations of the present 28 members of the European Union. The only chance to stand united is in designing a future in common and not facing the legacies and confrontations from the past. This paradox has its reflection on the language.